Louis Althusser's Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses stands as one of the most influential and controversial essays in 20th century Marxist theory, not only because it redefines the concept of ideology, but because it offers a sophisticated analysis of how capitalist societies reproduce themselves. Written during a period of intense intellectual activity in France following May 1968, the essay reflects Althusser's attempt to diagnose why revolutionary consciousness remains so difficult to achieve despite structural inequalities. His answer, deeply structuralist, anti-humanist, and strongly shaped by psychoanalysis, has fundamentally shaped contemporary debates in political theory, sociology, cultural studies, and critical theory. At the heart of Althusser's project is a reformulation of Marx's problem of reproduction. Classical Marxism focused primarily on the economic base and the direct relations of production. Althusser, by contrast, gives primacy to the mechanisms that ensure the continuity of these relations. For capitalist societies to persist, it is not enough to exploit labor. The conditions that enable exploitation must themselves be reproduced daily. This involves not only the reproduction of labor power, but also the reproduction of the norms, beliefs, and subjectivities that allow individuals to accept their place in the social order. It is here that Althusser introduces his most important distinction: the difference between repressive state apparatuses, RSAs, and ideological state apparatuses, ISAs. RSAs, such as the police, army, prisons, and courts, function primarily through physical coercion. They belong strictly to the public domain of the state and operate through violence. ISAs, however, are plural, dispersed, and located largely in the private sphere. They include schools, churches, families, media, cultural institutions, and even trade unions. Their function is not coercion, but persuasion. They shape individuals' beliefs and desires in ways that align them with dominant class interests. Importantly, Althusser emphasizes that ideology is not simply a set of false ideas imposed from above. It is a material practice embedded in rituals, institutions, and everyday behaviors. Ideology, therefore, becomes something one lives, not merely something one believes. Althusser's redefinition of ideology fundamentally departs from the classical Marxist distortion model. Ideology does not mask reality. Rather, it structures how subjects experience reality. It is constitutive, not merely deceptive. This allows Althusser to argue that ideological formation is unavoidable. Ideology has no outside. There is no pre-ideological subject capable of seeing the world objectively. Instead, ideology constitutes individuals as subjects through a process he famously describes as interpellation. To be interpellated is to be hailed by ideology, like a police officer calling out, "Hey you," and to recognize oneself as the addressee of this call. This moment of recognition binds the subject to the ideological system, making obedience appear natural, voluntary, and self-directed. The essay's central argument, that ideology creates subjects who freely submit to domination, is one of its most provocative and enduring contributions. It provides a structural explanation for why social change is so difficult. Ideology works pre-consciously, constituting the very categories through which individuals think and act. Schools, for example, do not only impart knowledge, they also reproduce disciplinary norms, hierarchies, and expectations. They create subjects who are free to participate in capitalist production, internalizing punctuality, obedience, and competitiveness as personal virtues rather than structural necessities. In Althusser's formulation, the educational system becomes the dominant ISA in capitalist societies, surpassing the church's role in pre-capitalist formations. This perspective has profound implications for understanding modern institutions. The media, for instance, do not merely report facts, they create frameworks of interpretation. Families socialize individuals into gendered and classed expectations. Cultural production shapes taste, desire, and identity. In each case, ideology naturalizes contingent social arrangements, making them appear timeless and self-evident. Althusser thus offers a powerful critique of liberal individualism. The liberal ideal of the autonomous, rational subject is an ideological effect, not an empirical reality. Individuals are always already subjects, shaped by ideological structures prior to any conscious choice. Yet while Althusser's structuralism provides a rigorous theoretical framework, it also invites several critiques. One of the most frequent criticisms concerns his determinism. By arguing that ideological structures pre-constitute subjects, and by denying any outside to ideology, Althusser seems to eliminate the possibility of agency, resistance, or transformation. If subjects are merely the effects of ideological apparatuses, what room remains for revolutionary consciousness? Critics like E.P. Thompson accused Althusser of abandoning the humanist core of Marxism, stripping away class struggle and reducing historical actors to passive bearers of structural forces. Another criticism targets the ambiguity of interpolation. Althusser describes the process as instantaneous and inevitable, but in practice ideological calls are uneven, contested, and often resisted. Feminist theorists, for example, have shown how some subjects occupy contradictory or marginal positions, enabling them to resist dominant ideologies. Post-structuralist and cultural studies scholars have also argued that meaning is never fully fixed. Audiences reinterpret, subvert, or reject ideological messages. Althusser acknowledges class struggle within ISAs, but gives little concrete account of how resistance emerges from subjects who are supposedly fully captured by ideology. A third critique concerns the essay's historical and political context. Writing after the failures of the French Communist Party and in the wake of May 1968, Althusser attempts to explain why traditional revolutionary movements could no longer mobilize the working class. His response, shifting attention from economic exploitation to ideological reproduction, helped Marxist theory adapt to new conditions, but also risked downplaying material struggle. Later theorists, such as Stuart Hall, Ernesto Laclau, and Judith Butler, have modified Althusser's framework to account for identity, discourse, and hegemony without fully abandoning the structural insights of his model. Despite these criticisms, the influence of Althusser's essay remains immense. His concept of ISAs redefines how scholars analyze power in modern societies. Instead of focusing solely on state coercion, his framework reveals how cultural institutions, media, and everyday practices play decisive roles in stabilizing capitalism. His materialist theory of ideology laid the groundwork for French post-structuralism, influencing Foucault's analysis of disciplinary power, Bourdieu's concept of habitus, and Zizek's psychoanalytic theory of ideology. Even outside Marxism, Althusser's ideas permeate education theory, media studies, and sociology. One of the essay's most enduring legacies is its insistence that ideology is productive rather than merely repressive. This insight moves beyond simple propaganda models. Ideology forms subjects capable of acting, choosing, and desiring within a limited field of possibilities. It offers a powerful explanation for why subordination often appears voluntary, and why social systems can endure even when they generate inequality. In contemporary societies marked by digital surveillance, algorithmic personalization, and media fragmentation, Althusser's notion that ideology operates through material practices embedded in institutions remains strikingly relevant. Today's platforms, social media networks, advertising systems, educational technologies are new ISAs shaping subjectivity at unprecedented scales. In conclusion, Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses remains a foundational text for understanding modern power, ideology, and subject formation. Althusser's structuralist reworking of Marxist theory reveals the subtle, pervasive mechanisms that reproduce social relations and shape individual consciousness. While the essay's deterministic tendencies have been rightly critiqued, its conceptual innovations, especially the distinction between RSAs and ISAs, the materiality of ideology, and the theory of interpolation, continue to inspire critical scholarship. As societies become increasingly mediated and institutionalized, Althusser's insights into the reproduction of ideology provide indispensable tools for analyzing how contemporary subjects are formed, governed, and potentially transformed.